Hey guys, Mike Parker here. I want to do a quick video today on OCD and rituals. I want to talk a little bit about why, when you start OCD treatment, there is so much focus on what your OCD rituals are and how you can take the steps to stop doing those rituals. So, the first thing to realize is that what happens with rituals is you are basically experiencing some sort of thought you don't like, usually accompanied by an uncomfortable emotion, and then you're engaging in some kind of behavior to try to get rid of the thought and the feeling. Now, the reason why it's really important to identify what you're doing in response to those thoughts that you don't like is because you might want to think of that thought sort of like a tantruming child in a candy store, in a toy store. That child wants that toy, wants that candy, and is absolutely freaking out, screaming, having a meltdown in public. And you know, if you just give the child the toy that they're crying about or the lollipop, that it will stop that tantrum. I also think, though, at this point, most parents and even just most people in general know what's going to happen if you give that toy or that lollipop to that child. That tantrum has been completely reinforced as an effective behavior for the child, and they're going to continue to use that whenever they are not getting what they want. So the way of thinking about OCD rituals, it actually can be quite similar. When you're getting a thought that you don't like popping into your head, that thought is going to either be reinforced or actually de-emphasized in your mind based on how much attention you give it. So let's just take, some of those typical OCD thoughts that people experience. One can be, did I hit someone and leave the scene of an accident on my way to work today and I don't remember it? I had a hit and run and I don't remember it, and I'm feeling this urge. I've got to go back and check my whole path to work and make sure there's no bodies or blood or evidence of an accident. Did I lock the door before I left the house? Am I a violent person who's going to hurt someone one day? Am I possibly suicidal? Am I a pedophile? Do I like little children? If you have OCD, you might be familiar with all kinds of intrusive thoughts like that. What's going to happen if you ritualize is you are giving candy to that baby, and those thoughts are a screaming child in your head. Doing a ritual is going to say, you are worth my attention. This thought just completely changed my behavior. This thought entering my head just made me stop what I was doing, completely attend to the thought, and completely start to ritualize and do something behaviorally. So it is the actual ritual that is the problem. And the ritual is going to dictate how much of a theme those thoughts continue to have in your life, how important they are in your mind, and oftentimes how often you experience them. So the one thing to think about with your rituals is almost any reaction you have to the unwanted thought is a ritual. If you drive back and check your route to work to make sure you didn't hit anybody, obviously that's a ritual. It's very clearly, behaviorally, something you're doing. If you go back to the house repeatedly to check to make sure you lock the door, obviously that's a ritual. And those are usually the easier ones to identify, the things where you're really obviously physically and behaviorally doing something. So you definitely want to start to limit and ultimately completely restrict doing those rituals because those are feeding the fuel to the thoughts. There are other things you're going to want to identify, though, as well. Mental rituals. And believe it or not, these are giving your thoughts just as much attention as physical behaviors. So when I have the thought, what if I'm a pedophile and someday I'm going to abduct a little child? You know, I'm a bad person in some way, and I want these horrible things. Any thinking you do in that area is actually giving that thought attention. You know, so you could think of something that doesn't worry you. You know, am I a bank robber? Am I going to turn into a cartoon character? Something ridiculous. I mean, obviously you would have to do zero mental activity to disprove that thought in your mind, and you're not going to be reinforcing that thought at all. However, if you're scared that you might be a pedophile and you have that intrusive thought enter your head when you're at a kid's birthday party, and you immediately start going through all of the reasons why you're not a pedophile, all the reasons why you might be a pedophile, and trying to logically figure out if you're a pedophile or not, that is actually mentally ritualizing. That is actually giving that thought a lot of attention. So those are the sort of rituals that you want to resist as well, not just those physical rituals, but any mental thinking sort of rituals and responses you're having to those thoughts. And so I think that probably about covers the quick tip for today, which is why do I need to stop doing my rituals? And the simple answer is rituals give thoughts attention, and attention reinforces thoughts. And attention actually makes it more likely for you to have the thoughts more, and attention makes you, in the long run, more and more and more distressed by these thoughts. So that's the reason why we're resisting rituals. We don't want to give thoughts attention. We want to extinguish the tantrum happening in our mind by not giving the candy, not giving the toy to the thought. And then second of all, I'd say the next point of this little video would just be, don't just resist physical rituals, but we're resisting mental rituals as well. So any physical response we're having to the thought, and any mental thinking and reviewing and figuring out that we're doing in response to the thought as well. So, you know, and then think of a ridiculous thought in your mind. So think of the thought, I'm going to turn into a cartoon character. Notice how you react to that thought. If that is not one of your obsessions, you probably have almost no reaction to the thought. That is going to be your goal with your OCD intrusive thoughts and your OCD obsessions, to have that dearth of a response, to have that little of a response to your OCD thoughts. All right, that's it for today. Good luck resisting those rituals.